I got a message today for some white people. If we have white people listening, paying attention, I wouldn't mind if you would do this with me. We rub our chests, we find our heartbeat, and we say, we did this. We did this.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about a fascinating political dichotomy involving a couple of takes on the Tyre Nichols killing. Okay, you know, the black guy, the unarmed black man that was beat to death by 5 black police officers. Everybody has an opinion on that situation because it is tragic. It is probably the biggest news story that is out today. And of course, people are playing the blame game, right? In situations like this, everybody is going to try to point the finger at somebody or something that is to blame for why this happened. And one of the more interesting takes on this situation that I want to talk about is this idea that has been promoted by the left that what happened with Tyre Nichols is some form of white supremacy or systemic racism, or that somehow, some way, race is involved in this tragedy that happened. And again, these are the type of takes that left-wingers were putting out about this situation. Take a look.
I got a message today for some white people. If we have white people listening, paying attention, I wouldn't mind if you would do this with me. We rub our chests, we find our heartbeat, and we say, we did this. We did this. White supremacy did this. I'm talking about Tyre Nichols. The police didn't do this. The Memphis Police Department didn't do this. White supremacy did this.
5 black officers charged in the killing of an unarmed black man. Now, we often have conversations, Van, about the element of race and the racial dynamic in policing. But I think we all know quite well that when it comes to power, blue trumps black. The idea of the race of the person who is victimized, often more telling than the race of the aggressor. What is your reaction?
Yeah, I think it's really important because there's this very simplistic notion that says, well, if a white cop is doing something to an unarmed black person, then that's racism. But we sometimes forget, unfortunately, African Americans can also be guilty of hatred and bias and bigotry against other African Americans. Sometimes you go into a store that's owned by an African American, they're nice to the white folks and suspicious of you. It's not that only one group can harbor anti-black bias. It's so pervasive. And so the other thing that happens is certain neighborhoods are just considered almost by some police departments war zones. Anything goes over there. You know, just do what you have to do. And so black officers can pick up on those kinds of cues, those kinds of signals when nobody gets in trouble for acting a certain way in this neighborhood versus in a white neighborhood. So race is an element here. I can't imagine any police officers delivering that kind of brutal beating to a white male U.S. citizen. Can you imagine if you had 5 black officers doing that? It's very hard to imagine. I think what has happened is we've become accustomed, black and white officers, to a certain amount of inhumanity being directed in certain neighborhoods with certain suspects, and you saw that play out today.
I think the second thing is what we're going to see is a lot of people now talking about, well, it was black officers, so see that they can be racist. See, it's black on black crime. And I want us to note that black people can be agents of white supremacy. That can happen. That's a fact. Black people, brown people can be agents of white supremacy. Trans folks can be agents of transphobia. LGBT folks can be agents of homophobia. Women can be agents of misogyny and patriarchy. Like, the people that's affecting can be agents of that. And this is what we saw with these black officers, is that because they were an officer, they thought that they got the benefits that white officers get, that they get that thin blue line.
Yeah, so I want y'all to understand what the left sees as totally rational and logical takes on this situation, right? That a mainly black police department being ran by a black woman and mainly black people, where you have an incident where 5 black police officers beat a black man to death in a majority black city, overwhelmingly black city. Somehow, some way, white supremacy and racism has something to do with it, right? That's the blame. Perfectly logical and a reasonable explanation from the left. They have no issues with it. However, when Jason Whitlock, right, went on Tucker Carlson and simply suggested that, hey, you know, maybe the black woman who's running the police department and single black mothers who are raising a lot of these, you know, young black men who eventually become criminals, maybe they should take some blame for this. The left loses their minds.
I would examine the racial element of this, because there is a racial element. And this is a story about young black men and their inability to treat each other in a humane way. Everybody involved in this on the street level was either 24 to 32 years old. Everybody. It was a group of young black men, 5-on-1. Looked like gang violence to me. It looked like what young black men do when they're supervised by a single black woman. And that's what they got going on in the Memphis Police Department. They've elected some or put some black woman in charge of the police force. And we're getting the same kind of chaos and disunity and violence that we see in a lot of these cities that are run by single mothers. If we want to discuss the breakdown of family that leads to disrespect for authority, that causes you to resist the police and run from the police and not comply with the police because you resist authority at all time, because there was no male authority in your home, let's have that discussion. But that's not where they want to take us. They want to take us down the path of saying, you know what, this is Tucker Carlson's fault. This is some random white, this is Donald Trump's fault. It's not. It's the breakdown of family and the buying in to all these left-wing things that have nothing to do with promoting family.
So yeah, y'all seen what he said, right? One second. Now, were these same men raised by single black mothers? I'm just trying to figure that out.
It looked like what young black men do when they're supervised by a single black woman. And that's what they got going on in the Memphis Police Department. They've elected some or put some black woman in charge of the police force. And we're getting the same kind of chaos.
The fact that he is allowed on television is wild. Did they run out of like notable people to play the role of Uncle Ruckus or something? Like, I don't get it.
So Jason Whitlock, and we already know what this character is about, decided to go on Fox News and give his 2 cents that no one asked for about Tyre Nichols' murder. This man had the audacity and the unmitigated gall to say it's what it looks like when young black men are supervised by single black women. The fuck? This misogynistic asshole needs to go somewhere and sit all the way the fuck down. How dare he? So you come out here and make this horrible take about someone's child who was just murdered?
Yo, Jason Whitlock. I was raised by a single black mother, the amazing, incomparable Miss Pauline Bowman. I now sit in the United States House of Representatives. I'm the first person of color and first black man in U.S. history to hold this congressional seat. How is this incident of police brutality, where 5 officers brutally beat and murdered an innocent black man, how is that the fault of single black mothers? You must have lost your mind, man. You must have completely lost it. There's a lot more I want to say, but I'm going to keep it right there.
That's Jason Whitlock, and this is genuinely what he's been like his entire career. He said Colin Kaepernick wasn't black. He said that the people that spray painted the N-word on LeBron James's house a couple years ago, that wasn't racist. It was just a bunch of kids being stupid. He's called Black Lives Matter a hoax. He has underplayed police brutality. And if I'm understanding him correctly, he's essentially saying what happened to Tyre Nichols is a result of young black culture and single black mothers. What? Jason? There's a special place down there for people like you. Man, you should be ashamed of yourself. This is quite literally one of the worst things I have ever seen and heard.
Yeah, so I want you guys to understand why I say this is an interesting dichotomy here. It's because the left, they think that when you hear somebody come out here and they blame racism, white supremacy, the white man, right? You know, all the things they blame. They think that makes 100% sense, right? That makes sense, perfect sense. 100% completely logical. Even though the city is mainly black, it's being ran by black people. The police department is ran by black people. Everybody involved in this incident was black. But if you say it was the white man's fault, right, or it was racism or white supremacy, makes sense 100% to them. Jason Whitlock gives a take that I don't even 100% agree with, but I agree with some of what he's saying. He blames basically the woman running the police department, okay, and then he talks about culture, which, again, is a problem, okay? You could argue that the police officers that this Memphis police department hired to be on this Scorpion unit, they probably were people, if they weren't on the police department, they'd probably be gangbanging or something, right? They'd probably be in the streets, right? He made an argument that that's a part of it as well, too. He basically blamed black people, right? He blamed the people involved, and they lose their minds over that. Oh, I don't understand how you can blame that at all. I don't understand how you can come to that conclusion at all, right? But if you say it was the white man, though, that makes perfect sense, right? It makes perfect sense. No backlash. You're not upset. You're not mad and saying, wait, why are you blaming white folks when white people have nothing to do with this? But if you blame black people and everybody involved was black, right? Apparently, that's off limits. Apparently, you're going too far. Apparently, Jason Whitlock is a sellout. He's a Tom. He's a this. He's a that. Again, it's just amazing how that works. What the left finds to be a logical, reasonable conclusion or take on a situation like this, if you're going to talk about race, blaming a white man is reasonable, but blaming black people is not. Now, again, I don't think that this situation really has all that much to do with race, right? I'm not blaming black people as a whole for why this happened, okay? I do think it is something to be said about the fact that, again, you have a mainly black city where the police department felt compelled to even have a unit like that, like the Scorpion unit, where basically these guys were allowed to, beat the shit out of people and ask questions later, right? Instead of ask questions and then, enforce the law. No, they were allowed to basically enforce the law and then ask questions, right? I think it's something to be said about the fact that they even felt the need to have that in the first place, considering how Memphis is probably one of the most deadly cities in the country, if not the most deadly and dangerous city in the country. But outside of that, yeah, I don't think that race has all that much of a factor outside of the fact that, again, everybody involved was black. I think these cops were just not good people, right? Sometimes the simple explanation is probably the most reasonable and accurate explanation, which is that this really doesn't have anything to do with race. They didn't beat the guy because he was black, right? The officers, weren't aggressive because they were black. Maybe they were just bad people, right? They were just bad police officers, okay? That's it. They were thugs in uniform. It is what it is. But I don't think that Whitlock's take was more unreasonable than some of the takes that we're seeing from the left coming from people like Van Jones, which, I mean, he has got a lot of backlash from the right in regards to his take, right? And him blaming racism and, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, as the reason why, this happened. But again, the left feels like, blaming white folks, somehow, saying that this is racism or whatever, totally fine, totally okay, But if you blame the people that were actually involved, right? If you're gonna throw in race, right? If you're gonna have a race conversation about it, nah, that's totally off limits, right? It is more accurate to blame white people than to blame black people for an incident that involved mainly black people. Again, it just goes to show you how the left really thinks very, very, very low of black people, right? Nothing is ever a black person's fault. It's always the white man's fault, even if it's only black people involved. It was that evil, all-powerful white man that made it happen, right? Again, it's just incredible how it works. So again, I just thought that the difference, right, between how the left responded to people like Van Jones and others blaming white supremacy or blaming racism, their reaction to that versus their reaction to Jason Whitlock essentially blaming black people. I just thought it was a very fascinating thing to witness. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a black conservative perspective. Peace.